It's time for Living Your Purpose, a motivational and inspirational podcast with Peter and Joyce Nielsen.
Hey everybody, I'm Peter Nielsen and welcome to my podcast, Living Your Purpose. I mean, that's what it's really all about, isn't it? I hope that each and every one of you, wherever you're tuning in, whether it's from the West Coast, the East Coast, my friends in Canada, or anywhere throughout the world, that you're healthy and that you're moving forward, you're getting unstuck, and you're truly living that purpose-filled life. You know, I have a special guest. I met him at one of my conferences. I think it was in Texas, and his name is Andreas Boettcher, and he's a trailblazer when it comes to men's health. Also, he has a business. He's the CEO of It's Only Halftme, a community of men who's committed to making their second half of their life their best half. He also has education in exercise science and health. He's a keynote speaker, travels around the world. He also is a chiropractor, and he's just really focusing on just a holistic approach, men's health. And I think what I really want to delve into today is that so many people, they'll start the race really strong, and then they get to halftime and they're petered out, no pun intended. So without further ado, let's bring him on right now. I am so excited, as I mentioned, for this next guest. And Dr. Andres, I am just, you and I, we met, and I just felt that there were so many things that you're doing in your own life, in your own career, that aligns with not only my belief system, but also what I've been doing for the last 30 years. And I love when we were talking, you were saying that, it's like people are just, especially men, there's a new 40, there's a new 60. Can you explain what's happening and how it's evolved where men are starting to realize that, after halftime, as you would say, it's not like we just live on the couch and then we die.
Exactly. Well, it's an honor to be here. And yes, when we met, total kindred spirits with a common mission. And I have to say, you embody the mission of It's Only Halftime.
Thank you.
It's a mission that's really come out of my own personal life and struggles and challenges with my own health, my own weight, my own body composition, my own low testosterone, my own autoimmune issues, to still be in the best shape of my life at the age of 54. And, the new 30 is the new 40, the new 40 is the new 50. And here's how we can say this, because when you look at people like Dana White or Jeff Bezos, you see the transformation these gentlemen have made. And they've used cutting edge lab analysis and DNA methylation testing and other genetic markers to truly reverse engineer their health. And what we're starting to see, and what I'm very excited about as a clinician, is that not only do we not have to accept where we are in aging today, because a lot of men will lie to themselves and say, oh, you know what? My best years are behind me. I might as well let it go, have a good time while I can, and say la vie, and what will be, will be. And I'm here to tell you it doesn't have to be that way, because we can actually not only measure, but we can actually lower biological age by years, slowing the aging process, because in fact, it is the highest risk factor for all-cause mortalities, how fast we're aging.
Right.
And I know that sounds like the biggest duh on
the planet. But there was just a study, and you probably will agree, that humans, we're finding out, men, women, men, are aging at two specific points of their lives. And if you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not crossing your T's at the breakfast, lunch, and dinner table, if you're not sleeping right, if you're just partying, how many people do you see or I see at reunions, or people that were an Adonis? They were just built like a brick house, full head of hair, not a wrinkle on them, or women that, that won in high school, the Queen Victoria, and you can't even recognize them. And so much, in my opinion, has to do with lifestyle. When I tell people I'm 63, going to be 64 in March, They're like, Peter, we love you, but you're BSing us.
He's
And
not BSing you, I can tell you
right.
that.
And the thing that I would love to talk about, it's like it's you against you,
It is.
because every single year I want to outdo the year before. You
Right.
know, it's like you're as good as your last fight. So if you are coasting at 50 and you're saying, whoa, I look good, I have this and that, and then all of a sudden, like you said, you just relax, life and time waits for nobody. So I guess, and if you could tell everybody, I mean, you're a chiropractor by trade, by schooling, but you had this passion. And if you could tell a little bit about your story, I think it's important, on you being having such validity and a pioneer in what we're talking about today. I mean, you weren't always in shape.
No.
Your testosterone just crashed and went to the gutter. You started gaining, I saw some pictures. You look more fit now than you did 20 years ago. So explain just, a quick synopsis of what made you go from, say, practicing chiropractic to having this passion, this calling, to help people after halftime.
Yeah, no, it's come out of clinical practice. After years of treating thousands of patients in clinic, and the amount of patients that I've been able to help get off of pharmaceutical dependency, even
Amen.
weekly injections, by just tapping into the innate ability of the body to heal. As I've always said, the inner pharmacy is always going to be far more powerful than any outer pharmacy.
Right.
And I always tell people, they say, well, you're just a chiropractor. What do you know? And I just respond in kind. In I just simply give your body more credit to be healthy, to be fit, to be lean, and be strong on its own than my medical counterparts who see you as weak and needing their outside intervention to try to express some kind of variance of health and well-being. Now, out of all of my accomplishments in life, beyond the Ironman triathlons and men's physique, contests, as you alluded to, after I graduated chiropractic school, I lost my way. A lot of us do this as men, right? We sacrifice our health, our well-being, our fitness for career, family, and success. And it's noble in a lot of ways. And society even rewards that. And I was one of those guys. I was 30 pounds overweight. I was drinking beer on the golf course, eating hot dogs, trying to raise a family. Next thing you know, I'm bulging 30 extra pounds. And all of a sudden, I'm peeing blood in a routine urinalysis test.
Wow.
And, if you know anything about medicine, that's a red flag for cancer right away.
Right.
Now, the good news was it was an autoimmune condition where I produced too much of an immunoglobulin, IgA, which can damage the kidneys and cause the kidneys to break down and lead to kidney failure and put me on the organ transplant list if I'm lucky. So you talk about a wake-up call. And of course, doctors wanted to put me on medications, and of all things, an ACE inhibitor, which is a blood pressure medication shown to be off-label use and effective to help with said condition. And I just responded in kind to the doctors. I said, you know what? Thank you, but no thank you. I need to get back to the fundamentals of health, calm down the inflammation, calm down the insulin resistance, get control of my diet, shred the excess body fat, but you monitor me, doctor. Now, fast forward, I'm no longer peeing blood, and I never took a medication for that condition my entire life. And I think, when I look at my passion, to answer your question, is that how many men and women out there are on pharmaceuticals right now that don't need to be on them if they just implemented some of the essential elements that we all need to thrive and be healthy and to be well. And that drives me today because, I thought there was a time my best years were behind me. I lost my father to suicide. I went through financial challenges. I went through divorce. I lost, my mother far too young. And it was very easy to fall into woe is me and sit on the couch and feed myself to death. But I said, you know what? I need to enter a men's physique show. I need to channel that energy and that stress. And it's my passion to help show people how they can leverage the challenges of life and use it to lift them up rather than to lower them and awaken that inner pharmacy.
And on that note, it's like when you think about it, I always say, like, I've had 2 death experiences with Crohn's. I have an autoimmune condition that wants to kill me every day. and there's no cure for it. And lost 3 feet of my ilium to Crohn's disease since I've been 15. I have not been on pharmaceutical medication for over 25 years. And I became the national spokesperson for Crohn's and colitis. The wildest thing, and I'll say this, but even certain foundations, they then partner with people that are going to pay for that education and stuff. So for every purchase in life, there's a cost. And especially when it comes to medication. And don't get me wrong, I wouldn't be here today with some great doctors. I had to be on medication with infection. But I believe so much that the body loves us enough and is the most amazing healer if we nurture it and give it the right environment. And in saying that, it's like it's so easy for patients, instead of eliminating saturated fat, instead of stopping smoking or drinking, they'll take a pill. They'll take a pill because we have a sick care system that we go in. We think that the person, and again, so many, I would say the majority of my friends are doctors, psychiatrists, neurosurgeons, orthopedic surgeons, general practitioners, chiropractors. So I love them all. And there's a place for each and every person. But we in a society, knowledge is power, and most of us are not knowledgeable about simple things we went to school for instead of social studies, mathematics, geometry, science. We know nothing about macronutrients, essential fatty acids, protein. We're nutritionally illiterate as a country, and it's not even our fault. So in saying all that, I guess my question to you is, for so many people in this country and people in the world that are listening or watching this, they're getting close to halftime or they're in halftime. They're exhausted. They're jaded. They're cynical. They're numb. They're just existing. What is news they could use immediately that you've even done in your own life to say, man, I got to get off of the sidelines, get back in the game?
Yeah, well, the first thing you have to do is you have to declare a new standard.
Right.
And here's what I mean by that. I saw a great video that you did on the power of belief. You have to believe that the other side is still possible. Number one. And that's hard to do if you've never been there or you haven't seen it in a long time. Because one of the dangerous things that I see in today's world is a growing acceptance of a declining average in health. Instead of raising the bar on health, we're lowering the bar on health. The reference ranges for lab analysis continues to go lower. What used to be normal T in the 50s is now down here in 2024. And it's just simply lowering this standard. And so the biggest things is to start with belief and then raise your standards and say, you know what? I deserve more. I'm capable of more. Everything that was inside of me is successful. Because here's what I mean. A lot of the men that I work with, they're very successful, right? They've got the home, they got the money, they got the toys, they've got the cars, they've got the travel, they got the bank account. But when it comes to their body, they're broke, they're bankrupt at best. Right. And they're a ticking time bomb waiting to happen. And so the good news is a lot of this can be reversed with a simple declaration of saying, you know what? It's only halftime. It's just like a great football team, right? Go into the locker room, you're down by 30 points, and you say, okay, guys,
Lions, go Lions.
How are we going to show up? How are we going to finish this game?
Right.
Those points in any kind of sporting event are scored in the second half.
Absolutely.
Just watch yesterday, the Washington Commanders and Dallas Cowboys, 50 points were scored in the last 4 minutes? It was crazy. And it's a shift. It's a decision. It's a paradigm.
You said something that I've been promoting for decades. And when I say to believe again, people, it's hard for them to kind of wrap their minds around it. But when you believe something, you embody it. When you embody it, you literally, figuratively become that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, if we want to even take that biblically, the great book says words create life or death. So if you say, I'm a good provider for my family, I got the Rolls Royce in the driveway, I take my family everywhere, we don't have to worry about bills, but I'm never going to lose weight. I'm never going to get off of this hypertension medicine. I'm never going to be able to work out like my wife. Guess what? You're not. You're speaking death into your own health. And many people do that in their marriages, in their occupation, and definitely with their health. So I believe words do create life and death, and that we do have the ability with positive thinking to really be careful about what we speak. We need to speak life and champion our own lives and say, I'm going to be healed. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to stop smoking. I'm going to start dating my wife and have a great marriage. And you be amazed on if you fill your brain up with that, then that's what you're walking into. And many people don't know that. And then the other thing that you said is you got to put, in my opinion, is when you are at that point where, like, it's almost like God is tapping you on your shoulder and saying, so Andreas, how is this working for you? I mean, is this working for you? And you finally have to have, a soul talk to yourself to say, am I going to go around that same mountain another 10 times? Or am I going to make a change? And the most powerful thing you can ever change is your mind, your mindset, because you will get your health out of the gutter if you truly have the ability to change your mindset. In saying that, you were talking about testosterone, and now on every corner, you have your med spa, you have your anti-aging place. And now instead of them saying to men, or women for that matter, you're doing steroids, you're going to hurt yourself. Now, no, I'm doing teeth therapy, and I'm under the care of doctors and stuff. So my question to you and to all the people that are listening and watching around the world right now, you said that you were living with low testosterone. So how naturally can someone get out of the weeds with that? I mean, I know foods that will help increase free testosterone, testing, exercise, eliminating a lot of different, things. But what is your version or take on that, on how they could do what you did and reverse that role without getting injections or whatever?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this is my favorite topic. And it really comes
And
out
I'm
of
sure I'm pissing some people off right now. I'm
no, listen,
sorry.
what people decide to do is entirely up to them. And
Right,
maybe there is a time and place where TRT comes into place. But in
right,
my opinion, and many medical doctors will echo this, it is considered to be malpractice if you're not installing the lifestyle habits first,
right,
meaning you've got to get rid of the body fat. Because body fat is not just unsightly tissue, it's active tissue that secretes an aromatase enzyme that aromatizes testosterone into estrogen.
right.
And so a lot of times doctors, when they have that type of patient, will come in, they will also then prescribe an aromatase inhibitors. And so begins the cycle of increasing medications over time.
Right.
Then now we're starting to see a trend in the 30s where younger men are getting it, and it starts to shrink the testicular size, spermatogenesis, right? The ability to produce sperm. And now we add HCG to help try to increase that. And so it just becomes this cycle. And what I just say is, wait a minute. When I was diagnosed with low T, It was a very stressful time in my life. I just lost my mother too young. 7 months later, my father to suicide, and there was a lot going on.
Wow.
My testosterone was 270 nanograms per milliliter. Now, it's not just that. You also have to look at free testosterone. You have to look at SHBG, right? Albumin. These are the binding proteins that can actually bind to up testosterone. It's like a slow release factor, but if it gets too high, it lowers your free. But here's the thing. I said, wait a minute. Doctors were very quick to say, Andreas, here's your TRT. And as I usually typically tell my doctors, thank you, but no thank you. You need to learn how to manage stress. And we all go through stressful events in life, and stress raises cortisol. Cortisol directly competes with testosterone.
And homocysteine, it increases, my golly.
And homocysteine.
Inflammation. Yep.
And this is what I tell men, because everybody always asks me, how did you do it, Andreas? What's the one thing? And that's the wrong question. I always tell men that you need, and even focus on the stack, not the one hack. This is very different because there's many different causes for low testosterone. What is not true and total BS, that it's normal with aging, that it declines, that low libido, poor focus, poor energy, expanding waistlines are all normal part of aging. That's all BS that only makes men and women the perfect avatar for big pharma and big sick care.
Right.
You make them a lot of money at your highest expense. So what I do is I say, okay, let's step back. Got to get rid of the body fat. I got to start managing stress properly. How can I channel that energy into things that are more positive, get my cortisol down? One of the ways you can combat cortisol is supplementing with a DHEA supplement. Okay, this helps where part of the testosterone conversion process happens from the adrenal glands. It's only a small portion of it, but that's very powerful. But then what I do is I run lab analysis. We look at micronutrient deficiencies. We look at selenium, glutathione, zinc, magnesium, boron. These are all essential markers that help support cholesterol synthesis. Now, here's the problem. A lot of men get put on medications that tank their testosterone, statins being number one. There's no way you can have healthy testosterone on a statin because it kills the backbone to your hormone production, which is cholesterol. Cholesterol forms pregnenolone, which becomes androstenedione, which then becomes testosterone. Now, that entire conversion happens in the mitochondria. What damages the mitochondria? Insulin resistance, having too high triglycerides, too low HDL, high omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acid ratio, high CRP, IL-6, homocysteine. These markers, and it astounds me that how many doctors do not include these basic markers in their lab panels. When men show up,
they don't know.
They don't know. And I'll give you a perfect example of that in just a second, right? They're missing. When clients bring me their lab work, I'm going, these are woefully inadequate.
Right. And
then they end up on the wrong medication that depletes a lot of these micronutrients. And then, of course, further exacerbates the problem because when your mitochondria aren't working properly, then you're not able to metabolize glucose and fatty acids into the fuel. And it's no wonder you have brain fog, you can't focus, you can't get it up, you have poor energy, you have everything else that's going on. And I'll give you an example real quick of how problematic this is. My neighbor, 2 doors down from me, is a pain management specialist. And we got on this conversation talking about one of the most basic tests that every man, woman should do, and 97% will fail. And that is to know your omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acid ratio.
Yep.
This has everything to do with how healthy the cell is. It damages the mitochondria, so nutrition cannot get in and waste products cannot get out.
Yep.
And so you
all
can
about inflammation. Yep.
Yeah, you can have all the good nutrition and all the supplements of the world, but if you're inflamed internally from chronic inflammation,
Agreed.
You will never be able to express health, and you'll recover slower. You have more aches and pains, more joint pain, testosterone production goes down. Everything starts to cascade from there. Now, here's the thing. I mentioned this to the pain management specialist, and he goes, I've never heard of this test.
And it's crazy. And it's like, here we are in the 21st century, and people would rather guess than test. and the test is not going to lie. And, with all due respect, it's not even the doctor's fault in the schooling, because they didn't go to school for that. There are some doctors that you and I both know that extended even online courses to get certified in some of these areas that we're talking about. But that's why, here we're the richest country in the world, in our health care system. In some third world countries, there's less cancer, there's less heart attack, there's less prostate cancer. It's crazy, but knowledge is so very powerful, and it's scary. But as I mentioned a moment ago, when someone sees someone in a white coat, they think that it's the next Messiah, and they're going to listen to everything instead of doing their due diligence. And again, I don't want anyone, and people that know me, I'm not throwing anyone under the bus. I think that the medical community is amazing. I wouldn't be here today if I didn't have a great team of doctors. But I believe that people that are morbidly obese, the epidemic of diabetes in our country, childhood obesity, libido. It's backwards. I mean, if probably the best, medicine you could ever have is in the produce section of your grocery store, because
that
color
would be thy medicine.
king.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I'm not hating on the medical profession.
Right.
They do
I know that.
amazing things, organ transplants, I crash on my motorcycle, take me to the ER, put me on main, right? I get it, 100%. But we're talking about just basic management of health.
Right.
That's what we're talking about. And, when I talked to this pain management specialist, we did this test on him, and he tested at 33-1. You should be at 3-1 or lower. And he was taking an omega supplement from a big box store. So not everything is always created equal. So that's why testing is just so important, to really have a broad spectrum. And what I find, and what I've seen throughout my coaching years and private practice, is that when we install the basic behaviors, right, it's amazing what the body can do.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing how it can heal. And I used to always tell my patients
unlimited.
Yeah, I'm not your doctor. I would tell my patients that all the time. They're like, well, what do you mean? You're not my doctor. And I said, your body is its own doctor.
Right.
My job is just to remove the interference and give it what it needs and step back and see what the miracle inside can do. Right. And it's amazing what can be done. And that brings me back to the earlier point, how we opened it up. I just simply give the body more credit, because I see it every single day in the clients that I work with.
And I think that what you said is paramount, in the sense that what I say when someone leans on me too much is, I say, I can't eat for you. I'm not shopping for you. And I'm sure not working out for you. But you need to be accountable and be the CEO of your own body. Because exactly. You only have one model year. This is not a dress rehearsal. And
life is not a dress rehearsal. I always say that.
I want to give you news that you can use. I want to give you education. I want to guide you down a straight and narrow path that is going to put more quality in your life and may extend your life. Because I think that when you're in your 20s, even your 30s, you think you have the world ahead of you. And then when you get into your 50s, and you've accumulated a lot of stuff, you got a great family, you start having soul-searching moments saying, you know something? I got less runway ahead of me. And I need to seize the moment of each and every day, because I can't get today back. And also, you need to be responsible if you are a father, if you are a husband, as a man, and a spiritual leader that you're supposed to be. If you go down, everyone goes down. Yeah. I just got married to the love of my life. Feel like I'm doing life all over again. I got 2 step kids. that I feel like are my own. They're 9 and 12. My wife is a bit younger, like 17 years younger. I need to stay healthy.
Yeah.
I owe it to them to be the best version of me because God's love is to put not self, not flesh, but put the other person before you. And it's a beautiful thing. But what do I always say? You can't live a purposeful life if you're not healthy.
Yeah.
So coming full circle, how can people find you? What exactly is part of your program? Because, I feel like love to have you on the show again. I mean, we just touched on many things, but before how people could find you, what do you want to be when you're gone? What do you want to be remembered for? What impact on this world did you make that no one else could because there's only one you? What would that be?
That's a big question, and I'm glad you asked that. Where people can find me is you can go to my website, itsonlyhalftime.com. I lay out everything there. I've got a free video. I've got all kinds of free resources and tools and downloads. You can also follow me on Instagram at Dr. Andreas Official, where I even have more downloads. I've even got my complete diet, meal plan, workout, top 10 supplements that can start helping you to transforming your health. It lays the foundation of which upon a great kingdom is built. Because as you mentioned earlier, if the king falls, so does the kingdom.
Right.
And as fathers, I always challenge, especially my male clients, is what are the example that you're setting for your children? Because they will model what you are doing.
They watch you like a
And,
TV.
and so the thing that men underestimate is the influence that has on their legacy and how their children operate. Because it's not the genetics that are just passed down to your children, it's your habits.
Right.
And my own son struggled with being overweight at 14. He was insulin resistant. He was pre-diabetic. I was just looking it up on my phone. I couldn't find the photo. But my point is that he saw my transformation. He saw how I handled stress. And guess who he came to when he got tired of being called bitch tits and Pillsbury Doughboy and got picked on in school and getting in fights? He said, Dad, will you show me the way?
Yeah.
And I said, absolutely. Because why? Because it never would have been possible if I hadn't set the example myself.
If you had, I always use the analogy, don't talk to me about war if you haven't been in war. Don't talk, the surgeons can talk to me about what they're going to do with the Crohn's disease, but don't tell me you know how I feel when you don't have that. So for your son to see you go through that, I always say that our children are basically our future of hope. And one of the most important things that we can leave behind is how we lived our life. My kids know that I talk for a living all over the world, but they're more interested in my actions. Just like my wife or the people that I love is an action word. I could say I love you all day long. I could give you roses every day, take you on nice trips, but if I don't live my life in truly finding new ways to exhibit that love, it's just words,
It is,
So I
it is
guess,
just words, and the thing that's great about it is now my son is 20. He's stronger than I am. He's fitter than I am. He's now studying health and wellness in school. He wants to work with me, and it's only halftime to help coaching men to bettering their health, but it would have never been possible before. So to wrap up that final answer that you were asking me
yes,
for, what do I want to be known for? Is I want to be known as the man who defied a growing narrative that is robbing men of their true health potential by the status quo that we talked about that is no longer acceptable, no longer even necessary, by just simple actionable strategies and tools. As a man who created a movement called It's Only Halftime, where literally people are waking up going, you know what? That's it. I've had enough.
yeah,
It's only halftime. Time to reset, time to refocus, time to reignite the man, the woman that you are and can be again. by making the most powerful move in your life, and that's a decision. The decision to no longer accept the status quo, to demand more from your doctors, to demand more of yourself, and demand more of your choices. And it's when we start taking personal responsibility, that's
Right.
when we shift
Ownership.
control in our favor. It's not genetics. It's not this. It's not something on the outside world. We all go through crap in our life. We all know what we're going to do to deal with it. And that's what comes down to. And what we want to do is teach people how to leverage that instead of letting us lower us, to help us all rise up to be the men and women that we all can be.
Yeah. I say amen to that, and you're on your way of really helping so many people. And I just want God to continue to lead you and guide you and protect you and use you in a mighty way to help people that are going through tough moments. I mean, there's millions of men in this world that, as you said, feel as though that their life is behind them, the best is behind them. And when you speak life into yourself and say, no, the best is in front of me, it's not going to just magically happen. No matter how great your faith is, it's not going to fall on your lap. What do they say? Faith without action is dead. So for all the men out there that are listening, for the women that have loved ones in their life, let's help them get off of the couch, get back in the game. And I really appreciate you taking the time today to be on Living Your Purpose podcast. And again, one more time for people that are wanting to reach out to you, do you even have maybe an email or your website again? That would be awesome.
Yeah, no, I'll give it to you all. So it's onlyhalftime.com is my website. If you want to send me an email, you have questions, I'm happy to do consults on the phone. It's Dr. Andreas, DrAndreas at itsonlyhalftime.com. And then, of course, my Instagram channel, Dr. Andreas Official. I've got loads of free gifts, including a free community to help plug people into, to support, to help us all rise up and become who we can all still be. Never lose faith.
Great. Listen, I'm so glad that we connected. I'm really looking forward to, seeing Zinzino soar. They're one of the amazing companies in this world. They're from Norway. They're now, they have their footprint into North America, and they have an amazing test for finding out your omega-3, omega-6. And as they say, as I say, as you say, don't guess, test. Again, thank you so much, Doctor, for being on this show. And I hope that you and your entire family have a great holiday season.
Yeah, bless. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and many happy blessings to everyone. Thank you.
Yes. Bye-bye.